Welcome to the 30-Minute Hour. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
It is indeed a happy Monday once again. And again, it's about to get happier as we talk about the AI leadership gap that nobody talks about.
Mm.
This is really going to be interesting. I've never heard this perspective put this way as it relates to AI and what leaders can do and how they can set the organization up. So this will be good. You're in for a treat. I think Ted, it'd be good for us to just get right to it. Let's go
Just,
ahead and
just jump right. Look, it's the 12th of January. Let's jump right into it.
that's right. We might as well jump right into it. All right. Again, we're talking about the AI leadership gap that nobody talks about. Our guest is a rare blend of technologist, strategist, and coach who bridges the gap between executive vision and operational execution. I draw from his experience as a CTO, a CISO, and an executive coach. He aligns technological frameworks, security protocols, and leadership development strategies, enabling leaders to enhance both their organizational infrastructure and their personal effectiveness. Please join me in welcoming to the show Kevin Carlson.
Hey, thanks, guys. Eric, Ted, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah, man, it is truly an honor to have you on the show. Looking forward to diving into this. So let's give people some background perspective. Just curious to know, like, what was the vision you had for your career back when you were an undergraduate at the University of Colorado?
I don't know if I had any vision when I was in undergraduate school, honestly. Um, yeah, I was really interested in computer science and electrical engineering when I was there, but I had no idea where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. I was there learning, not very well sometimes, but I was learning, having a good time. But took a circuitous route, but eventually came back to the computer science side of things. Um, and yeah, I think my vision really was made concrete when I got my first full-time software development job, and I got lucky and ended up working on a skunkworks team directly for the CTO, and I was just like, that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy someday. So, but when I was at undergrad school, I was just there learning and experimenting and trying different things and learning different subjects and trying to figure out where I wanted to go in life.
Yeah, and so when you were in undergrad school, there was no such thing as a chief technology officer or CISO, chief information security
Yeah,
officer.
there may have been, but I never heard of one. It's
Right,
I
right,
mean, we were still doing stuff on punch cards, so it's
right.
it was a long time ago.
Yep. So I think the takeaway, and sometimes we get, younger executives that watch and listen to us, and or even people out of college, and the takeaway is that that thing that you end up doing may not have even gotten invented yet.
Man,
Very true.
he was talking about punch cards. It's like, man, that was a long time ago. I was like, wait a second. I remember that.
Oh man. So if you could go back and talk to that undergraduate version of yourself, Kevin, what advice would you give to that version of you?
Gosh, I think I would say probably explore more subjects. Um, a career is rarely a straight line. Mine certainly wasn't. And I wish I had. I was always pretty curious, but I wish I'd taken the time to explore more subjects when I was at the University of Colorado. You maybe take some finance classes, but I was such a STEM guy. I was such a nerd that I took physics and calculus and chemistry and computer science classes, and that's really all I wanted to do. And I put off anything and everything I could put off that was outside of those subject matter areas until I was a junior. And then I had to take all the other stuff, right? But I think if I had explored more early on, that would have helped me.
That goes against kind of the common wisdom that says you need to specialize and just go deep on one thing.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, and I'll give you an analogy, right? So it's especially prevalent in sports, youth sports. Um, they want you to pick a sport, and that's all you do. Like from the time you're probably 9 or 10 until you're out of high school, and if you go to college, you play that sport. Um, I saw much. I coached lacrosse and soccer, and my son was kind of growing up, and I played lacrosse and soccer in high school as well. But um, between the time I was a kid and the time my son was playing, that whole thing changed. It was it wasn't as strict and focused when I was young. We were kind of encouraged to try different sports. And then when my son was growing up, it wasn't that way. But what I saw was what a huge change it made in him trying soccer and lacrosse and playing in swimming and just trying different things and figuring out where his talent was. I mean, gosh, when you're 9 or 10 years old, you're in no place to pick something you want to do for the rest of your life. I don't think you're in that position to do it when you're 20, or you just haven't had the experience. So, experimenting and just exploring and being curious about things is what keeps life interesting. And even if you do decide what it is you want to do early in life, at least within that realm, continue to be curious.
I think
That's a great
sometimes,
point.
yeah, sometimes it helps to know what you don't want to do,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I had here in the Washington D.C. area, they had like a summer jobs program. The mayor at the time, Mayor Marion Barry, like his big legacy was, all the teens. He had a summer job program. So most people my age had a job because of the mayor. But one of my jobs, I was like helping out the janitors, like mopping floors. I mean, it was just hard. And I remember I would come back home. I'm like, oh no,
Let me start studying. It's time. Where are those books? Let me study. Let me
I don't
study.
want to go outside and play anymore. I
Yeah.
just want to focus.
But it's funny that I think about when I was in high school and and I took an accounting class and I hated it. I was terrible at it. So then when I got to college at Norfolk State and everybody kind of had knew what their majors was going to be and I didn't know. So I was like, okay, you do some general type of thing, you're going to it's going to stretch you out, right? So everybody's like doing accounting and business or whatever. So Kevin, why did I say, let me just write down and do accounting? Ted, you were horrible at accounting and you hated it in high school. So once I got into my major classes, I was like, I still hate it. Like I still didn't realize that nothing really changed, that was not my thing. And so then I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I liked, I like to play around with computers and things like that, for where computers were at that point. And someone was like, oh man, yeah, you ought to look into like management and information systems and it's a little bit of business and it's IT and all that. And I did it. And now when you look at where the industry is right now, and it's kind of like, man, like that was just a major blessing to go in that path because
Mhm.
I mean, those jobs are the hottest jobs out there. Like everybody needs somebody that knows, IT. And now it's just, it's a part of like everybody's IT. That's what they gotta say now, right? Like back in the 90s, it was kind of like, oh man, yeah, you're the IT guy. Now, no, everyone, like you got kids now that are like, yeah, let me go up here and fix the router in the house, right? You're like, what? When that used to be a big, deal to be the router guy, so we're in the right space.
Yeah, I agree. And to draw on what you just said, I mean, I couldn't stand English classes when I was in high school, and just really didn't care. And probably because I didn't have a great teacher, and I was terrified to take my a English class in college, and I finally took one, and I lucked out and got a great teacher, and it totally changed the way I thought about it. It just made all the difference in the world. But doing that got me interested in writing and being able to actually communicate effectively through writing, and be a technologist kind of made me a bit of a linchpin To borrow a term from Seth Godin's book, linchpin, being able to bridge different disciplines is a real valuable thing. And not pigeonholing yourself into a single, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life thing, and being able to pull other disciplines into it really makes you more valuable.
Yep, totally agree. Totally agree. So we fast forward to today. You're the partner, you're a fractional CTO for Tech CXO. So let's for our some of our listeners and followers here. Can you clarify what a fractional CTO is?
Sure. So it's a part-time CTO, right? So after years of being a CTO in full-time roles, I came here because I enjoyed the variety that it would offer. I was a CTO in a consulting firm, so it was, I kind of had that variety, and um, I, I I thought I would miss it if I didn't have it, right? So, but I really enjoy it. It's companies, will bring me in when they're facing a situation where maybe they need a first-time CTO and they don't know how to hire one, right? So I'll kind of go in and get the lay of the land and help them hire a full-time CTO. Or sometimes it's their CTO is leaving, and other times it's they don't have a CTO and they're getting ready to undertake a large, technology project and they need some guidance. But fractional is great if you want lots of experience and you don't want to pay for lots of experience in a full-time role. So I typically have a number of clients that I split my time across, and I'm focused on the projects that they want me to focus on, and they get my experience without paying a full-time salary for a role like mine.
Let me ask you this, Kevin, for our listeners, right? CTO, what is a CTO? And then CIO and the difference between the two.
It's a great question, and I'll give you my answer. I mean, others may have different answers, but uh, CTO, that role has been different everywhere I have ever had that role. And it really comes down to what's needed around technology at that moment. Um, for me, the difference between a CTO and a CIO is a CTO is more focused on innovation and developing new technology within the company. CIO is more focused on managing an efficient cost center, right? Making sure that you have the right systems in place to being properly managed. Um, to me, that's the biggest difference. I have certainly met CIOs that do CTOs work and CTOs that do CIOs work. But in a larger company, if you happen to have both, that's usually where that line splits. But again, that's going to vary by the organization. And on the CTO side, I've been in roles where it's totally focused on software development. I've been in other roles, like I mentioned, the consulting company role. It became more focused on client face-to-face, meetings and being able to really close technology deals, and then also making sure we were hiring and the right folks and keeping them up to date and just that we had a real efficient team that was actually implementing the technology that clients needed.
Good.
Oh,
I
thank
think we clarified that for quite a few of our folks here. So who is your ideal client? Like, how would you describe your ideal client?
Oh gosh, I don't know that there's an ideal client, but I can give you some characteristics of an ideal client. A client that has a definite need, right? So somebody who knows they want to accomplish something, but not quite sure how to get there. A client that may be curious about how they want to apply AI, for example, and they don't even know how to start approaching it. They don't know if they can leverage commercial models. They don't know if they need to implement their own in-house model. They're not even sure what they can do with the data that they have. Most organizations, especially companies like SaaS software companies, have a lot of in-house data. And so how do you figure out how to thoughtfully apply that and keep your client data private at the same time? So I think for me, it's is there a challenge? Is there something that they want to do that's difficult? And I think that's what attracts me to specific clients is that challenge and wanting to help them accomplish that.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about AI because
All right.
that seems to be the for whatever reason, I look at the shows that tend to get a lot of downloads. Is whenever we talk about AI, it's
Yeah.
like the hot button. There's all kinds of thoughts about it. But let's start with the basics. So like what do you see as like the most common barrier that keeps people from learning AI?
I think it's fear.
Hmm.
I think people are just afraid. How do I talk to this thing? How do I prompt an LLM? And the best advice I can give people is ask the LLM how to talk to it. Right? I mean,
Hmm.
they're pretty amazing machines, um, but they're not perfect. And the best way to learn is just to jump in and learn and just try things. But I do think fear is one of the biggest barriers. I think the second biggest barrier related to fear is companies are concerned about the privacy of their data and their clients' data, and they're not sure, can we use this? Should we upload this spreadsheet into Chat GPT and ask it to analyze it, or should we use the Excel plugin for Claude to do the same thing? What's private and what's not? What's it going to keep? Is it going to retrain on my spreadsheet data or some document? So I think it's related to fear. Um, the other thing that I think keeps a lot of people from using it properly is buying into all the hype that surrounds AI. There's more hype around AI than there's been around a technology in a long time. I think the only thing that might have uh, given it a run for its money is like Internet 1.0 back in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was a ton of hype around that too. But AI's it's a little bit different, and I think that there's a more pathways now for that hype to travel, especially with social media. And so it's real prevalent. And a lot of times, the biggest barrier to getting started are just misconceptions about what AI can do and what it can't do. And sometimes leadership already has an idea in mind, like this is what I want to do. And sometimes you have to have hard conversations with them. It's like, well, if you want to do that, here's what has to happen. Or AI can't do that reliably is also something that I have to tell people a lot of times. It's not magic. Essentially a machine that's been trained on patterns and can regenerate patterns to keep it real simple, right? So they're amazing machines, but they can't do everything that the hype promises.
So it's interesting. You were talking about leadership, and I heard you on another podcast, and you spoke about the difference between AI positive versus AI negative as it relates to leading an organization. Can you
Sure,
explain what the difference is?
sure. AI negative leadership. Let me start there. That's leadership that sees AI as a way to negatively impact the people in the organization, right? So, great, there's a coding agent available. Let's get rid of our software developers, right? And there was a instance of that that played out on LinkedIn a few months ago, maybe a year ago now, where a startup got rid of most of their developers, and a few months later they hired them all back.
Yeah.
Right? Probably not the same ones, but the negative piece is, are you using it to negatively impact your team, right? Your people. And AI positive is a viewpoint of, how can I use AI to positively impact my team by helping them get more done, by teaching them how to properly use AI, how to enhance their skill set, and how to guide AI in order to be more efficient and produce more code or produce more output, whatever the role may be. And that's really the key difference. Unfortunately, with all the hype, there's early on a lot of AI negative behavior with people saying, "Oh, I can get rid of all these, I can get rid of all these people now." And most of the time, it didn't work out real well. Now, that may change. These models may change and become, amazing things. And you can be a company of one, and that's all you need, right? But we're not there yet. And just to give you a quick example, I've played a lot with Claude Code over the past few months, and it is amazing, and it does a great job generating code. But if you're not an experienced developer that can keep it on the rails, it's going to eventually code garbage, right? You're going to have security holes, you're going to have duplicated code, you're going to have poor software architecture. I mean, you've got to know what you're doing to guide it, and it will write the tedious bits of code much faster than any human. But if it's not being guided, it's not going to write quality code or produce a quality product.
So how does, if someone's leading an organization, 'cause I think it's a balance. Like, how do you, on the one hand, be innovative and cutting edge, and and implement AI into your organization, but on the other hand, recognize all the fears that are out there, and you got your employees that in the back of their mind, like, oh, this is coming to take my job. I'm gonna be out of work in a few years. How do you strike that balance?
It's really the responsibility of leadership to educate people. And one of my favorite things to do as a fractional CISO or fractional CTO is exactly that. I mean, um, you have to educate companies on what's possible, what's real, and what the possibilities are, and how they're going to impact the company. I'm not saying that nobody in the company will be impacted in a negative way, but AI negative is about a viewpoint that's the goal, right? Um, AI positive is more about let's coach, let's educate, let's teach people what's possible, and let's show them. And it's you have to bring people along, just like you did when the internet first came out. You had people, in roles, producing printed material or this stuff, and then all that's moving to the web, right? So I remember a lot of those people being very afraid, oh, we're going to lose our jobs, right? And it's not the case. They made the transition into creating content in a different medium versus just print. So I think it's the same thing here. There's a shift that has to happen where leadership brings people to where they need to be in order to properly use AI within their company, within the guidelines the company wants to follow. Um, just dropping something on your your team and saying figure it out. That's a little, frankly, it's a little irresponsible. Leaders need to provide the example, and part of that example is how do you educate people and bring them to where you want to be.
But when you're looking at television and social media, I was watching something, with CNN or something like that, and they were showing these robots, right? And they were showing them like it looked like it was hundreds of them that were being programmed, and they were already working on them doing kind of some kind of manual type stuff, in a
Mm-hmm.
warehouse or whatever. And again, if I'm that person that's working that type of job, though, I don't know, I mean, if they know that they're going to be able to cut costs doing
Sure.
that and have some efficiencies doing that. I think that's a tough a tough place. Now there's some things again that I'd much rather deal with a human in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like automating stuff. You call somebody, I want to I want to hit one. I want a
Right.
voice. I want a voice, right? I mean, I don't want to go through all those prompts, but there's some things that I don't know. It's gonna be tough for a person that's in the certain types of jobs not to have a concern there.
I agree. I mean, and I'm not dismissing that. Some folks will lose their jobs over this, right? But it's the AI positive, AI negative is about the leadership's view of AI and what can they do. Now, this is an example I can think of that I see regularly, like when I'm traveling and I go through an airport. You see like a McDonald's, for example, in the airport, and you got to order from a kiosk, right? No more people. Well, that's a result of lots of changes that kind of led to that being a more affordable way for people to place an order. Um, and the warehouse, worker that you talked about, sure, robots are probably going to take some of those jobs. But leadership should look at it and say, okay, can I retrain these people? They already know my business. Where can I use these folks productively, and how can I help them as individuals transition into a different role?
Different
Right?
role.
Maybe every business isn't going to do that. I doubt they will, but
Yeah,
that's my viewpoint is that's the ultimate responsibility of leadership that cares about their people.
great point.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things, um, I still don't think that AI can replace that interpersonal warmth. So, like, if somebody is dealing with the public and customer service, and yes, you can, AI can field calls, and AI
Mhm.
can actually do certain aspects of presentations, which is scary. But, and actually, AI is getting better with humor and some other things, which is scary
Right.
too, but it's still not really replacing that interpersonal warmth. And I think that can still make a person valuable. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. If you look at copy that AI produces versus a good human writer, there's no comparison.
Hmm.
Um, I think that there's, and I write a newsletter on LinkedIn. I write a blog on Substack, and I write those, right, because I want it to sound like me. And the highest compliment I could be paid is somebody who reads something I write and they go, well, that sounds just like you, right? And that's important these days because that's what connects you with a
Mm,
topic, connects you with a writer. There's a lot of, I think the term that I've heard most is like AI slop that's out there, right? And
mm,
sure, you can generate it, you can publish it, and it's maybe people will identify with it, but if you write from your heart and you put some, you know, uh, personal context and emotion into it, it's going to connect so much better. So I agree, and I think that's what customer service reps that are actual people, they have that, right? So you're going to connect, and it'll make the experience better. And it's interesting, to me that in the middle of all this, somehow user experience is falling by the wayside. It's
mm.
all about efficiency. It's all about cost reduction. It's not really about customer service anymore, right? It's about how quickly can we get on and off the phone or on and off this, this chat with this person that wants something from us, right? Where and customer service has been in a decline for a long time, not just because of AI, but I think strong customer service focused organizations still value individuals that can help other people solve problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think from a leadership's perspective, I mean, that has to be emphasized. Okay, good. What are some trends with AI that people should know, but few people aren't really talking about it? What are some upcoming trends that people need to be thinking about?
Um, Gosh, there's so many. Um, well, I've talked a little bit about the coding agents, and I think they've gotten so much better over the past year. I'm really amazed with Claude Code, and it's not just for coding. Some of the things that Claude Code can do is I had a directory with tons of folders in it and lots of documents, and I cranked up Claude Code in that folder, and I said reorganize all these things by topic, right? And it would have taken me hours to go through and read all these documents and do it. And it did it in about a minute and a half. We're talking thousands of files, right? So um, I think we're going to start seeing. Actually, I just read today that Anthropic has released Claude Cowork. I think is what it's called, but it's rebranded, I think, from Claude Code because people think that's just a coding agent, but it does so much more than that. So I think we'll see more and more of these agents that can actually help you with you do manual work on your computer faster or do web searches faster from your computer rather than using an agent like a chat gpt or Claude, the application, and have it make the calls and just do it right from your computer. um, Other areas where I think there's just been phenomenal development over the past year is in media generation, right? So uh, music is a area near and dear to my heart, right? I'm a published songwriter, and I know what it's like to go through the process of creating something like that and recording it and putting it out there, and it's a lot of work. So when you see copyright infringement with these tools, I'm not a fan of that. But when you see real creativity that's benefiting perhaps the original songwriter, that's amazing. There's a guy on Instagram, for example, he goes by I think his handle is the Professor. I don't know if either one of you have seen him or not, but he takes hard rock and metal songs, grunge songs, and he recasts them in like 60s and 70s classic soul, and it's amazing. I mean, there's
Wow.
one that he did a couple that are, I think, just amazing. One of them is the song Would, Would, by Alice in Chains, and another one I don't know if it was The Professor, but another one is Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden, and redone as classic soul using AI to do it. Just amazing renditions, and I think if you know if I were the author of one of those and I heard that, I would be flattered, right? It's really creative and it benefits the original writer of the music. Another area that's just grown by leaps and bounds. I've got a good friend that's doing lots of exploration in the video generation side of things, and you can essentially. He jokes. He says I'm going to be a one person LA, right? And but you essentially have all the tools at your disposal that you would have in a multi-million dollar set with these cameras and things, and you can you can describe your characters, you can program in camera angles and camera movement and dialogue, and it's amazing, right? And so I think there's some industries because of this that are going to see huge change, but much like we saw with streaming, for example, going from where record companies had a super tight grip on what got released to having no grip at all, and anybody could put anything out they wanted to. I think it's the same thing for the film industry, perhaps, right? So anybody with time and that wants to learn about these tools can put out a really nice product by themselves or with a small team. So I think those are some changes we're going to see. I do expect these agents also to get a little bit more accurate as we go. Like I mentioned earlier, like on the coding side of things, that having experience enough to keep it on the rails is important. I think that'll get better. I think that we'll get to a place where a junior developer can spot what's going on, because the negative impact of these agents will decrease, right? So I think that's coming as well. I don't know that we'll get to a place where in the next few years, next 2 or 3 years, where you don't need some oversight. I do realize there's people out there running Claude code with the dangerously skip permissions flag set, and they write articles about how great it is. I've seen enough to know I don't want to do that yet. And maybe that's me not trusting the AI as much, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, I think that those are some of the biggest areas, Eric.
Interesting times, boy, I tell you.
They are.
All right. So you write a newsletter. It's called The Executive Shift. What will people gain by subscribing to this?
I was really lucky when I was coming up. I mentioned that earlier. In my first, full-time software development job, ended up working on a skunkworks team for the CTO. So I was exposed to sort of a role model, very early, and I had great mentoring from him, and I was lucky enough to have great mentors along the way. Not everybody is, and I was told many times in my career, software developers don't make it to the C-suite, right? Technical people never get board positions. I heard that over and over and over. Fortunately, I'm stubborn and I didn't listen. But I also had some mentors that said, yeah, you can do that. And, here's what you need to learn, Kevin. Here's what you don't know. Here's what you have to go learn. And, that's what this newsletter is for, is how do you shift from a doer role into a leadership role into an executive role? And what I love doing as an executive coach is working with up and coming technology leaders in organizations to help them make that shift. Help them identify where the gaps in their skills are, and then help them figure out how best to close that gap, right, and get where they want to go. I think people have the ability to achieve whatever they put their mind to in the vast majority of cases, right? And to hear people say you can't because you're a technologist, it's garbage, frankly, right? and so the Executive Shift newsletter is really designed to help people realize that, and help people that want to get to the C-suite or want to have a leadership role as a technologist, just help them get there.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about that. I think one of the biggest things in being a person that used to be a technologist, technical hands-on guy, to being a person that's, been in leadership and running a company for some time. The biggest thing is just I think it's a mindset, right? Like if you have a person that is like I was, it was a hands-on technical guy, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna start a company, and I'm gonna start a company, and I'm gonna do network deployment and administration, all that kind of stuff, right? That's what I'm gonna do.
Mhm.
Well, really, once you get the company going, you're dealing with so many other things. You're not dealing with that thing, right? I can't remember the last time I touched any network stuff. I can't even set up a printer right now, right? Because I'm so busy. Everything is business development. Everything is your financing, finance and marketing strategies and all those types of things. So I was forced into having to, I call it the 7 floors kind of doing the stuff and 12 floors kind of the strategy. Like I was forced to think like 12th floor, right? And I think that's what helped me to get there. But if you're a person every day and you're kind of hands-on technical coding, cyber tools, all that kind of stuff, and then to be like, okay, now I want you not to go all in the weeds with that, right? But know that it's really about bottom line and revenue and marketing and all of that kind of stuff. It's a mindset thing, I really think.
I agree with you, Ted. What you mentioned earlier about accounting, you know, so true. I mean, to be an effective CTO, I think you have to know a little bit about accounting and finance, right? You have to understand how that's going to impact your ability to achieve things with technology, and you have to help CFOs and COOs and CEOs understand what the capabilities of new technology are and how they could be advantageous to the business, right? So if you're so focused on one thing that you can't see uh, other things going on around you, you're not going to be as effective. And I think it's a real issue with a lot of technology roles. I think we have a tendency to really pigeonhole people, and it's unfortunate. But it doesn't just happen in technology; it happens in other roles as well. But I believe you don't need to know exactly everything you need to do, but you have to believe you're smart enough to figure it out, right? And if you apply yourself and you dig in and you learn, that's the biggest difference. I mean, a lot of people won't do that, but if you'll do that and you're persistent, you can get there.
Sure.
Yeah, this has been a fantastic episode, Kevin. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared.
Sure.
What's the best way for people to get in contact with you? If they want more information, want to utilize your services.
Sure, there's a few ways. Our website is techcxo.com. And if you go to I think there's a people page, and I'm on there, Kevin Carlson. You can also find me on LinkedIn, either at the Executive Shift newsletter, or my profile page is just /in/Kevin Carlson. Or you can find me on Substack at kevincarlson.substack.com. And lastly, you can email me, kevin.carlson@techcxo.com.
Great. Yeah, this has been very enlightening. Talking about the AI leadership gap that nobody talks about. So thank you for sharing once again. For those of you who are watching and listening, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show. Share the show.
That's right. Don't keep this great information a secret. And you keep in mind as well that you could go to Apple Podcasts, you can go to Spotify, any of those places, and follow us or subscribe, and that way you'll never miss a future episode. Well, that's our time for this week on the 30-minute hour podcast. And as I close, and you're thinking about closing that leadership gap as it relates to AI, please remember this: don't allow perfect to become the enemy of progress. Have a great one.